I'm excited to introduce the next speaker. Geula Twersky has been teaching Torah for over 3 decades. She has 2 master's degrees from Bernard Revel and from Bar Ilan, both in Tanakh. She's the author of Song of Riddles, Deciphering the Song of Songs, the Torah Song, Theological Role of Torah Poetry. Afterwards, I'll get to her book here if anyone wants it. Geula has published numerous articles in Torah academic journals. She has a new series of articles on topics in Torah and archaeology, and they're forthcoming in Bar Ilan's BDD, Darka De'ehu. She's also a professional artist, and her paintings are sold in 2 art galleries located in the corridor of Jerusalem's Old City. Here we have Geula's book for anyone who wants it afterwards. It's being sold here, so I'm excited to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. I do. It's called Geula Art. So we're going to talk about Shir Shirim. Shir Shirim, of course, we read on Pesach, on Shabbat of Pesach, and that's $64,000 question. I remember the $64,000 question show when I was a little girl. It's probably it should be a lot more money now today, but anyway, but that's the $64,000 question is why Shir Shirim? Why is that the Megillah that we read on Pesach? I do hope that we will come to an understanding of that and many other things in our short time together. Excuse me. And exactly, actually, this is what I'm going to talk about right now. And actually, I was just noticing that this is covering the Prochet, where I noticed that the Prochet here says, the Prochet over here is from Shir Shirim, and of course, when we talk not just about Pesach, but we talk about Kabbalat Shabbat, Yedid Nefesh. If you look at Yedid Nefesh, it jumps out at you. It's all Shir Shirim. And then the truth is, I hate to say all, but almost all of Piyut, of liturgical poetry, is based on Shir Shirim. And other psukim as well, but primarily Shir Shirim. Almost all. Wow. Really, how? And of course, this is the book that almost didn't make it. So that's fascinating for us to consider. So what I want us to do is to really get into the mindset of Shir Shirim. Now, I told you I'm an artist, and I don't look at these 2 disciplines as being completely separate, although it took me a very long time to get there. In the very, very beginning of my path in life, well, I love to draw, I love to paint. But when I grew up and I started to study, I threw away my toys and I got rid of my art supplies and I became serious. And that was a mistake. And it took me a long time, to be able to learn how to integrate, and not just to integrate, but to understand the importance of integrating those 2 pieces. And I think that my work on Shir Shirim is very much a culmination of that, also the Torah song, and that's what I want to speak about today, about being able to look at the Torah artistically with our imaginations. So let's start to do that. Okay? So think about Shir Shirim. Now, we're not going to, obviously, we don't have time to sit here and read Shir Shirim together, so I'm assuming we have enough familiarity with Shir Shirim, more or less. Or maybe not, that's okay, it's all good. If you were asked to direct a play that was called Shir Shirim, and you had to set up the stage for it, what would it look like? Oh gosh, it's hard to see this. Didn't come out because of. Oh, actually, it's a little bit. There we go. Okay. What might it look like? A garden. Shir Shirim is this magnificent garden. So perhaps we would set up the scene with a garden. It's so important for us to understand that when you open up Shir Shirim, you're in a garden. Like, wow, that's important. Where am I? That's the first question you have to ask yourself. It's like, where is? You are here. Where am I? You don't know where you're going until you know where you are. So first ask where you are. The second most important question, I think, in any book that you read, and this is something that took me years to get to, because, okay, look, profession do this, but nobody actually says this. Okay, this is the most important question to ask when you're in interview. It took me 45 years to learn this. Okay? What is it? Simple. What is it? What are we learning? Where are we? And what is it? These are such huge questions, and I'm sure, I know that these are questions that the profession asks, but we don't necessarily say it out loud. And then we miss those things. And those are 2 questions I'm going to ask. Where is this happening? And what is this? So the first thing I would suggest is that we start off with this background, this garden, one side of the garden. Okay? Not just any garden. Right? This garden has all these incredible spices named the carcon, the quinoa, and call it I'll show you some. Stop, smell it. It's like 4D. That's the theater that we're in. Okay? And then understand that where are we really? And here we have our sources. And I'm bringing it to you from Rashi. Rashi, of course, takes it from the Gemara. But if you look at the first source, which is Rashi and Shir, this is the very opening pasuk. And again, I'm bringing it from Rashi because I think Rashi is for us, for us, kind of our entryway for how we get into a text. I'm just skipping it down because we have so little time. I'm going to explain in English now. Halfway through, Kedai, Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Kiva, Matthew Raya, Rabbi Kiva. והיה העולם כדאי כיום שניתן לו שיר השיר מישראל. The whole world was not.
It wasn't even like, it just wasn't right until Shir Hashirim came along. You want to throw Shir Hashirim in the dustbin. The whole world doesn't come into existence properly until we have Shir Hashirim. Shekol HaKtuvim Kodesh, Shir Hashirim Kodesh Kodashim. Everything else is holy, but Shir Hashirim is the Holy of Holies. I'm going to stop here. I just want to Rashi quotes this. This is so important for us to go into Shir Hashirim and to understand that this isn't just something that's wow. It's something that's super wow. But it's not just super wow. It's Kodesh Kodashim. We want to understand what that means. So we're going to get there. But again, it's all part of the question of where are we and where are we going? Okay. Before I go to the next slide. Okay, so think about it for a second. We're in a garden. It's this aromatic garden. And of course we need people who are going to perform this play. So who do we need? How many players should we ask for? Sure. So how many do we need? We need 2.
3? I'd like 3.
You said we need 3. Why do we need 3, perhaps?
God.
Ah, where's God? Interesting. Right, where's God? So, but if we're going to absolutely cast it with the main characters, we're going to need we're going to need a man and woman, and well, we want to be able to allow people to come in, so they're going to have to wear something. But in Shir Hashirim, it's a bit of a problem, and this perhaps is why Shir Hashirim was questionable, because if you actually imagine it fully, we get very, very explicit descriptions of their anatomical features, which makes us feel uncomfortable, perhaps. But it also tells us where we are. Because we have a beautiful aromatic garden, and we have man and woman who are not wearing anything. Where are we? We're in Gan Eden. That's so important. And there are many, many, many other aspects of this. But the truth is, I can say the aspect of the story, but Shir Hashirim isn't a story. When we think of a story, we think of something that usually, not always, has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Shir Hashirim has none of that. Shir Hashirim really is more like a dream. Think about your dreams. Your dreams don't have beginning and middle and end, but they're powerful and they're meaningful. And so sometimes we learn to think in a particular construct, and it's hard for us to step outside of that construct. So we're so used to that we just automatically assume that when we open up what looks like a story, that this is going to be a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And this isn't that kind of a story. This is more like a dream, fantasy, something else. And that's where we are, in a kind of a dream-like state, or a hidden progress, some kind of a hypnotic, almost type of state, where we have this heightened awareness of of sense and what we see around us. And within that context, I just want to point out this fast, just like, I can only take a little bit, but I'm just going to take this one pasuk and just show you the reverberations of these two places, these two incredible gardens that reverberate off of each other. So in Reshit we read, El Haisha Amar Ve'Elishech Shukater V'Hu Yimshol, that the woman shall desire the man. And then this is part of the curse at the conclusion of that story. And in Shir Shirim, what do we read? Ani B'Tzadi Ve'Elai Shukato. There's a reversal. There's some kind of an undoing. There's some kind of a tikkun that's taking place here. That the curse of Chava, and there's so much for us to talk about. This is just to kind of bring us in. We can see it really clearly here that this Megillah is undoing something that went wrong. Okay, so in order to understand all the answers to all these questions and what it is that is being undone, and what is it that's happening, and what is it that we're reading, let us consider our actors. And we said we need a young man and a young woman. But at the same time, when we read Shir Hashirim, we notice that this young man and young woman suddenly become creatures. And it happens so easily and so smoothly and so artlessly that we suddenly don't even realize that we're supposed to be asking the question, but how did our young men and women suddenly turn into a dove or a gazelle, which are the two main creatures that this young man and woman become in Shir Hashirim? And they flip in and out so seamlessly. So think about it in the following way. Think about this. I'm going back to my childhood a lot here. One of my favorite childhood toys, a kaleidoscope. A kaleidoscope where you bring yourself into your imagination as you look at colors and as you look and you see them shifting and how they come together. And that's what's happening in Shir Hashirim. There's a tremendous amount of shifting and shape-shifting that's taking place. And we have to be able to make sense of it and think about it. This is all happening in our minds. And I'm going to bring you to one of my favorite art projects that I did in first grade, that I learned in school, where we were told to draw a bird on one side of a card, and on the other side to draw a nest, a cage, and then to suspend it from a string and to spin it. And this is what we got. And with the end, of course, the two images are combined. But what we saw up until we get to the final image is in our minds. When we see something fast enough, and that's basically a motion picture, right? That's what's happening in Shir Hashirim. Of course, it's not a bird in a cage, but it's a bird, a gazelle, and a young man and a young woman, right? So let's do that. Okay, so here we have a young person. What did we see?
A sphinx.
So we see perhaps a sphinx or a combination creature, right? Which, if you think about it, in the world that we're setting up here, is quite possibly a Kruv. We're in Gan Eden. We know that there are Kruvim in Gan Eden, right? Because one of them was blocking the way, more than one, blocking the way back, right? So there are Kruvim there. We don't find out about it until the end, but we know this is a place that has Kruvim. And we know also that Shir Hashirim and the Kodesh HaKodeshim, this is very much connected, right? And there's also stuff I'm sure you've heard about these things, and I just have time to develop it now, but the relationship between the Gan Eden idea and the Beit HaMikdash idea is very much connected. again, don't have time to go into that right now, but think about the Beit HaMikdash and the role of the Kruvim in the Beit HaMikdash. There's a tremendous amount of overlap. And then if we understand how to think about Shir Shirim and the flitting back and forth of the Rai and the Dod, then what we're really looking at is Kruvim. Now, looking at Kruvim, we're used to something else. Well, this is how Chagall thought about Kruvim. But that was Chagall. He was using his imagination. And this is perhaps something that you're more used to thinking about, right? Well, this is, I'll show you a painting of mine, which is also the cover of my book. Okay. And let's think about what the Kruvim are, what they represent, and what are they doing in Shir HaShirim. Now, we know about the Kruvim from, especially, we know them from different places, but to really get more of a handle on what the Kruvim were, we turn to Sefer Yechezkel. Sefer Yechezkel has more of like a description for us to be able to get a handle on this. And Yechezkel describes the Kruvim as composite creatures, not only insofar as they were human and had wings, but also that they had also leonine qualities, right? Aquiline, what's it called? Eagle, right? Aquiline, yeah? Aquiline qualities, and also bovine qualities. Okay, so we know this from the Shir, from Yechezkel. So it's not so clear to us what Kruvim always look like, or if they always look the same. So perhaps what we can do is kind of go back to the world of archaeology and see how the ancient world understood Kruvim, because Kruvim, the idea of Kruvim is not just a Jewish idea. This is an idea that existed in the ancient world in all cultures. So we're going to just take a quick look through some of the ancient Near Eastern artifacts and what we can learn about regarding the Kruvim. Okay, this is an Assyrian sculpture, right, which also has the human feature, the eagle feature, the leonine feature, look at the tail, and the bovine feature. Okay. This is the entrance to the Gate of All Nations, the Palace of Persepolis, which, by the way, from the Purim story, this is the Maccabeal, the equivalent to the palace that existed in Shushan is actually this palace in Persepolis. Where did we go? I think I touched the cord. We still have it, it'll come back. But we also have these Kruvim that are guarding the entrance. It's going to come on, I hope. Guarding the entrance to the castle, to the palace. I hope that will come back on for us to see. Oh, I do hope so.
How did the gazelle become a cat?
Okay, so what I'm trying to, I don't know, I may not actually get to this stuff, but okay. What I was going to show you is that there are, in many different cultures, there are many different representations of these ideas, and it's not static. So it's not that it has to have all of these or any of these specifically, but it's more of the idea. Okay, and so I'll probably just end up unfortunately skipping over this piece of it, which I wanted to show you. But that is, it's not critical that it has to have X, Y, or Z, but that it is part of this idea. And that I think, and okay, also another very important thing for us to understand is that, wait a second, but when we learn Shir HaShirim, as much as, yes, you are like this or that, right? But that doesn't mean that you are this creature, right? And in the end of the day, it's very important for us to understand that both are true, meaning, we like to know, okay, is it, is the cat alive or is the cat dead? The quantum physics question, Schrödinger's cat, right? And the answer is both. The cat is both alive and it's both dead. It's quantum physics. Okay, so in reality, you can have two things that are opposite and they're both true.
But the idea is that it's like that all of these have the same elements of combining sort of
Yes.
more land feature, an air feature,
Yes.
and a human
Yes.
shama feature.
Yes. And also the point that I'm trying to make as well is that they are humanoid. Right? They are human. So it's not to say that they aren't human, they certainly are human. However, we're also being brought into this world. So understand that that both are true. And I'm not negating one or the other. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Undercover trying to find their place amongst all the different types of animals.
Yeah, and I think we also have a very difficult time with the Gan Eden story. We have a talking snake, for goodness sakes. Right? Right? So yes, we have a lot to make, and this isn't a shiur about Gan Eden, and we can talk about that for a very, very long time. Okay? But we're not. But by the way, this, and I'm not going to talk about it now, but I write about this, about the idea of the snake, and where that's lurking in Shir HaShirim, and how that also gets a tikkun. That's also all this stuff is all in Shir HaShirim. That's what's incredibly, incredibly fascinating. So understand, I'm not saying that we're not talking about man and woman. We certainly are. However, we're also talking about these things at the same time, or at least we're inviting these ideas into the discussion, and that these are fundamental ideas in order to be able to understand Shir HaShirim. Okay. So while we're doing that, I'm going to go back to the question of what is Shir HaShirim? Okay, and at a certain point, I just had this like this oh my god moment when I felt like I understood that. We learned that Shlomo HaMelech wrote many chidot. This is in Mishlei. I don't think I brought the source here. Shlomo HaMelech wrote many chidot. Oh, pardon me. Chidot are riddles. Mishalim and chidot. Okay? And the assumption has always been, if you look in the scholarship, that it's lost. We don't have it anymore. We have a little bit in Mishlei here and there, but more or less, that the chidot are lost. We don't have them anymore. Shir HaShirim is an extended riddle. It is a chidah, perhaps best named Chidat HaChidot, and it is the chidot of Shlomo that have been hiding in plain sight. It has been with us this entire time and we didn't even know it. Let me explain to you what I mean. Okay, so what if I say to you, so we talk about, if I talk to you about the entire Tanakh, okay, Gan Eden, right? And we certainly, one of the things that we need to understand, and we can't even talk about it now, this is a little time, is the idea of metaphor, right? Metaphor or something means more than just what it is. It means something beyond that, right? Or simile, where it's kind of like metaphor that punches you in the face, okay? Chidot, riddles, are not metaphors. And they're not similes. They're something different. They're even more obscure. They're even more closed. Think about the Rumpelstiltskin story. Remember Rumpelstiltskin? The farmer's daughter had to spin straw into gold, right? And they had to guess the name. How are you going to guess the name Rumpelstiltskin, right? You're going to guess the name. And the answer is you can't. You can't guess it. Unless if you have inside information. And that's the inside of the story. Rumpelstiltskin, right? The father, right, gets inside information. He's able to, I know your name is Rumpelstiltskin. Think about, okay, that's from my childhood. Think about famous riddler from the Tanakh. Who's the famous riddler from the Tanakh? Shimshon, Samson, right? What does Samson say? Min ha'ochel yatsa ma'achal, u'me'az yatsa matok. From the eater came food, from the strong came sweet. What does that mean? How are you supposed to figure that out? The answer is, you can't, which is why we need inside information. What ends up happening in that story is Delilah gets it out of him, right? And then the Plishtim are able to solve the riddle. That's the difference. A riddle is unsolvable. It's closed unless you have insider information. And that's true about Shir HaShirim as well. So how are we going to get that insider information? And the answer is 2 ways, okay? The insider information is going to come from 2 places. The first place is going to come is from the anomaly. Okay, this is theoretically in my presentation. Here is a riddle. I'm just going to skip ahead for myself 1 second. There are different kinds of riddles, just like you have different kinds of metaphors, you have different kinds of riddles. Okay? One very, very well-known type of riddle is called the declarative comparison. Declarative comparison is when you declare that something is like something else. Okay, here's a very famous one. 3 eyes have I all in a row. When the red one opens, all freeze. Who am I?
Video clip?
That's a good guess, a video player. A stoplight, that's right, a stoplight, the Ramzor. That's right. Three eyes, right? We have 3 eyes and a stoplight. When the red one opens, everyone freezes. Excellent. That is a declarative comparison, okay? Now in Shir Shirim, we have plenty of declarative comparisons, okay? Okay. Okay, we have Shorani v'nava. I'm black, but I'm beautiful. Benot Yerushalayim. Kolei Kedar Kiryot Shlomo. Just like the tents of Kedar and the tents of Shlomo, or the curtains of Shlomo, the Beit HaMikdash. Okay. Ani Chavetzel Hasharon. I am the lily of the valley. Shoshanat Hamakim. I am. Okay. Ani Choma. I am a wall. Vishadai Kinit Galut. And my breasts are massive, which is a strange one. Let's see if we get to that one. I was in his eyes like the one who found peace. What do we do with these? How do we understand these? First of all, understand what they are. They are riddles. These are declarative comparisons, and they beg us to seek the solution, because what does the riddler want more than anything else? That you should work to get the answer. You should work hard. You should sweat to get the answer. Now, so this is going to be a little bit, maybe I'll come back to this. Okay, we spoke about Shimshon. Just so you should know that Shimshon also makes it into Shir HaShirim, I think, in the following pasuk. We have these little foxes, little foxes, and they are destroying the Karen. Remember the story of Shimshon? Remember what he does with the foxes? And how he ties the foxes' tails together, and what do they destroy? The Karen Zayit. So a Karen is not just a Karen of a vineyard, it's also of olives as well. So that is, I think, is a clear wink to riddles, to the famous riddler, to, yes, this is what we're doing here, so pay attention. Shir does that. Oh, it's what I spoke to you about Mishlei, so I'm not making this up, okay? Shlomo did say riddles. Okay. So here we are. So in my work, when I set out to discover the meaning behind the riddles, and I understood that I had to have a methodology for doing this, I came up with the following methodology, which led me to everything that I'm going to be sharing. Okay. If I want to figure out a chida, a riddle, I have to look at it like a kind of a puzzle. A riddle is a puzzle, and you have to work on. And in order to find the answer to a puzzle, in other words, you have to work hard, right? You have to try different possibilities, but primarily you have to look for things that belong together, right? You have to look for shapes, images. You have to look for things that belong together. Now, remember what we said about Shir HaShirim and how we have to think about Shir HaShirim and how we have to think about the images? And let's be adults. What are the images that come to our minds when we think about Shir HaShirim? Our body parts, okay? That's overriding. Those are the images that come to mind. And that's perhaps what makes us the most uncomfortable, because we have our, things are supposed to be very, very respectful. We're not going to think about those things. That's what Shir HaShirim has. And Chazal said, perhaps out of our time, that it took Rabbi Akiva to say no. But Chazal, we're grappling with that. And I think that's specifically the place that we have to look, okay? And not only that, but we have have to look for the place where there are anomalies. We have to look for the place where there's the biggest question of all, and that is the place that's going to lead us in. It's like we said with the eyes. You have to understand that the eyes are not just the eyes that you see with, but also the eyes that you look at in another object. That there is more than one meaning to a word, and Shir Shirim is full of that, of those double entendres. And so in order to be able to find the meaning of the Chidah, we're going to have to be able to put the pieces together. In the case of Shir Shirim, it's putting the body parts together. Okay? And I have specific things that just to show you so that you can get an appreciation for what it is that I'm talking about. Okay? So let's talk about the nose. The pasuk says in Shir Shirim, when describing the beauty of the raya, "Apech kimigdal halabanon tzofeh b'nei damesek." You are so lovely. You have a huge nose. Now that is a tough one. So tough that even Rashi, for a time of it, so I take Rashi. And I take your sources. And it seems that the sources got a little bit garbled because of the Nikudot. But this is the pasuk here, the second source. And Rashi says, basically, I can't do it. I cannot say that the nose is the nose according to the Pshat. There's just no way, because in no vision of beauty in any culture at any time does it seem that a large nose was necessarily a vision of beauty. Okay? So you can't chalk it up to that perhaps in a different culture we don't appreciate things the way that they want to appreciate it. Noses. And so what Rashi does is he takes it totally out of context. You see, it's not really the nose, it's the face. And that's how we're going to explain it. But you understand that it presents us with a real problem. And we makes us feel uncomfortable. That's the kinds of anomalies that I'm talking about. The thing that makes you stop and say, that is the place that's going to let you in. Because that's where the Chidah is saying, this is the place. Okay? Stop and think about it. And it's not only is it so big, her nose is so big, how big is it? So big that it gets all the way to Damascus. But really think about it, that's a big nose. Okay? So all the way to Damascus? Really? Well, think about it. What is it about Damascus that's going to let us into this riddle to understand it? Okay? Now, Rashi is mitmoded with that. That was like one of my kids said. Rashi is mitmoded with that. Rashi is dealing with this. That was like real Hebrewish. Okay, so he says like on the bottom of this Rashi source that's here, ראיתי במדרש זה בית יער הלבנון שעשה שלמה שהעומד עליו צופה ומונה כמה בתים יש בדמשק. You can stand at the top of the Beit HaMikdash and see as far as Damascus, you can even count the houses. That's how big the Beit HaMikdash was. Again, you're seeing how Rashi's working double time to try and figure this one out, because this one really presents us with a problem. And again, what I'm saying is that's our opening. These are the places that are going to let us in. Okay, so in order to get the insider information, where are we going to get that insider information from? We don't have Rumpelstiltskin to help us. There's a Shir keyboards in here, and I don't know where Delilah is. So who's going to help us? And the answer is the Tanakh will always help you. In order to know what anything means in the Tanakh, you always have to look in another book of Tanakh. Almost always. And that the Tanakh is meant to be learned as a single book, and that's certainly the way that Chazal learned Tanakh, and certainly the way that you have to read Shir Shirim for sure. But I would argue that's the way you're supposed to learn any source in Tanakh, not by itself. So you will never, that's a word that we have to be careful about using, but I believe that to be true. You will never be able to understand anything in Tanakh if all you learn is that source, period, end of discussion. Okay? So we need to look somewhere else. So the somewhere else that I'm bringing you to here is in Amos. And Amos is describing the northern kingdom of Israel and how they're going to be completely torn apart by the enemy. And the pasuk says, "Kol Amar Hashem, kasher yatzil haroeh mipi ha'aretz shnei kra'ayin o b'dalos." And just like if there was a flock of goats, and the shepherd would only be able to save the tiniest bit of maybe an earlobe, okay, from all of his goats if the lion comes and menaces the flock. Bnei Israel Yeshua Shalom. That's what's going to happen to the northern kingdom. B'ma'at mitzah u'b'zemes keres. All you're going to have left is a little piece of the pillowcase. And that's it. No bed, no house, just a little piece of the comforter. That's all you'll have. That's a very powerful pasuk. But let's look at that pasuk, and it says the message eris. Now, it could have just said the covering of an eris. Eris is the yitzua. It's the bedding. What's domestic? Well, the reason it's domestic, Damascus, is because of something that even is true today. Damask is a special fabric that has two patterns. It's double-sided, and it was made by expert weavers in Damascus, and that's why it became known as Damascus. So just like we have fine china, because the first people to import it were from China, right? And any other number of things. So too Damascus, which was known for its textile industry, even until today. Well, I don't know what's going on now in Syria, but up until rather recently, so much so that the word damask had the way that it crept into the English language. Okay, so understand that the word Damascus refers especially to the linens that were used for the coverings of beds, like we saw domestic eris, and that was the key. Because when we think about the eris, we think about the place of the Kodesh HaKodeshim, where the Aron was, and that's what David Hanel says in Tehillim. Shir HaMalot, Zachor Adonai LeDavid et kol b'noto, Asher nishbal Adonai nadar l'Abir Yaakov. David HaMelech made a vow. Im avo b'ol beiti, im eleh al eres yitzuai, that I shall not go onto my bed, im etin shnat leinai la'fapai tnuma, that I shall not slumber, ad emtza makom l'Adonai mishkanot l'Abir Yaakov, until I find a suitable resting place for the Aron Kodesh. In other words, there is a comparison that's been drawn here between the eris of David and the eris of God. Now, God doesn't sleep, but what is the resting place of God? It is the place of the Kodesh HaKodeshim. Now I understand eris. Now I understand Damascus. Now I understand my pasuk. Because the Kruvim were facing each other at the same time as they faced the eris of God. והיו הקרובים פורסי כנפיים למעלה, צוחחים בכנפיהם. על הכפורת ובניהם איש על אחיו. אל הכפורת יהיו פני הקרובים. Two things that don't make sense. At the same time that the kruvim are facing each other, they are to face the kaporet, the cover of the Aron at the same time. How can that be? Let's understand that there's a subtle tilt, there's a gentle tilt. And now if we reflect back on our pasuk, that your nose is facing the Damascus, which is the damask, which we understand from that is referring to the domestic eris, which is the eris of God. And now we understand we're talking about the most beautiful description of the Bnei HaKruvim, the face of the Kruvim. And this is a magnificent description of the Bnei HaKruvim, the face of the Kruvim, and it's literally bringing us into the Kodesh HaKodeshim. It's just one example. Now, we have a midrash which I'd like to share with you specifically about the way that the Kruvim were woven into the fabric of the Yeriot, of the curtains, and of the curtains of both the all that surrounded the Mishkan, as well as the curtains that were the roof, that served as the roof of the Mishkan. Kruvim Maseh Choshev. The Kruvim were Maseh Choshev. They were a thoughtful product. What does that mean, a thoughtful product? Kruvim hayu mitziyarim lahem ba'aridatam. That when the women did the weaving, they wove it wasn't a rikmai, it wasn't an embroidery that was done upon the weaving, but rather it was woven into the fabric itself. Velo birikima, and not through embroidery. Shehu Maseh Machat. That's not Maseh Choshev. Maseh Choshev is when you have to think about it first. You have to plan it out because you can't just take a needle afterwards and touch it up. Ela Ba'ariga B'shnei Kotarim. It was on both sides. Not just on one side, but also on the other. Damesek Eres. Damask. That's what they made in Damesek. Two-sided fabrics. That was what the Kruvim were. So again, when we put it all together, it just becomes incredibly rich. Okay, so now moving on. I want to show you this at work in one more source. And then after I've done that, I hope I've sufficiently convinced you. Well, I'm not trying to convince you, but I'm trying to share this with you. Well, after I've sufficiently shared enough, and okay, so this is what I'm going to say. This works with every single body part. I didn't really explain this sufficiently, pardon me. When I say you have to look at the body parts, what it means is you have to take the places where Shir Hashirim talks about the body and put the psukim together and then compare it to like psukim in other places in the Tanakh. And that's what we're going to do again. And when we do this with every single one of the body parts, this is where the discussion leads. Invariably, it will lead back to the Kedusha of the Beit HaMikdash, the Kruvim, the Kodesh Kodeshim. It always goes back to those places. So here's another fantastic one. We have the dance of the Shulamit. Shuvi Shuvi HaShulamit, Shuvi Shuvi V'nech Zevach. Dance, O Shulamit, that we may look upon you. Matzichazu Shulamit, Kimuchalat HaMachanayim. Oh no, you should not look. You should not look. On the one hand, we have this dance for us, he wants to look at you. On the other hand, there's no, you shouldn't look. And there's a whole lot of that going on in Shir Hashirim. Ma'iflu Pa'amayich B'na'alim Ba'nediv. Chamukei Rechayich K'muchalaim Masei Deroman. Your Pa'amayich. Now, a Pa'am is, we'll usually say Pa'am would be a time or once, but the Shlosha Regalim are also the Shlosha Pa'amim. Okay? The Regalim is also the Pa'am. So then you could say, your feet, we're talking here about the feet, and it certainly makes sense because we're talking here about a description of the raya from the bottom up, which is why I have those arrows on the side. We're focusing at first on the foot, but then our gaze moves up. Okay? And when that happens, we stop and we say, just like we did before with the nose, if we could sort of like gloss over and say, yeah, your nose is lovely, let's move on, right? So no, it doesn't say the right word. It says palm. It's not just that. It's the reason it's awkward is because the word palm doesn't really mean foot, it means footstep. Okay? So to say that your footstep is beautiful is a little bit strange because it's a very, very detailed description of her leg we're going to see. And if we're describing her leg, to say that we're then describing her footstep is a little bit out of sync, and we have to notice that. It's like a discordant note. It goes, you have to stop and say that was a discordant note. So think about that for a second. Okay, so now we have a description of the inner thigh, and I'm not going to get into all of this, but I want to make sure I time for everything. Okay, and now we move from the inner thigh to Gimel Sharech Agan Hasar Al Sar Hamazet B'nich Arimat Chitim Suga Pashoshanim. And we know that we're moving up. We went from the foot, we went to the inner thigh. Now we know that somewhere in this pasuk we're in the Betan already, we're at the area of the Betan. But before we got to the Betan, we got to the Sharech, okay, the Shar. And the question is, what is that? And it's pretty much universally translated by the Meforashim as the navel. Okay, but that's difficult. It's very difficult for the simple reason, number one, that's not what it means. Shot. Number two, it's talking about a navel that's holding wine that is intoxicating. And now if you stop and think about it, you're really supposed to stop and think about it and say, well, how much wine could you actually pour into a navel? And could you get intoxicated on it? The answer is probably not. And it's a very odd description. Is that really what we're talking about over here? And I think that's really not what we're talking about. I think that we're talking about something else completely. And we're talking about the physical internal anatomy of the woman. And then we understand this discussion is taking us someplace where it could theoretically make us feel uncomfortable. And what is Shir doing here, if that's in fact what's happening? And then it goes up, and again we're moving up. Shnei Shaddai, Shnei Afarim, Tamei Tzviyan, after describing her breasts, and then we go up to her neck, etc. And then we come to the pasuk here that concludes this little section. It says, "Roshech alayich Carmel, v'dalat Roshech ka'argaman, melech asur bratim." When we finally get to the end of this description, we have a king who is ensnared in rehatim. Now, rehatim would seem to be drinking troughs, and the head of the king is in the drinking troughs. And what does it have to do with anything? And so there's many different attempts to solve this. Many. And we don't have time to do all of them, and I brought some of them here. And so if you look at the source sheet, and I brought a very little, or I discussed this all in my book. I brought Rashi because Rashi's like, it's like our go-to, and Rashi he's a very, you could see him kind of like doing shmiyot ba'avir, trying to get out of this. Like how are we going to explain this one? I'm just going to skip to Melech Asur B'Rahatim. So Rashi says, Shlosh Makom, this must be a place. This isn't a thing. It must be the name of a place. That's Kashur B'Tatalim. It's like knotted in her hair, in her tresses. Okay? So Rashi's like literally groping for answers because he said, well, it must not be a proper word, it must be a toponym, right? And then Evan Ezra says, no, like Evan Ezra's our shot man, right? He's like, no, the word means what the word means. So Evan says, it's a trough. Okay, you just can't get away from it. It is a trough. That's the place where they have to really come together because that's where you meet at the water. Don't you know that's where people meet each other? Again, if that's really what it means, then that's a really strange way to say it. Yeah? Very. Especially if such and super duper descriptive. What we saw over here, so suddenly we're doing in the troughs. Okay, so if we understand, again, what is it? What are we looking at? If you understand, we are in the world of Eden, which has tremendous parallels to the worlds of the Mikdash. We're in the Kodesh Kodashim. We're surrounded by the Kruvim, right? What's residing inside of the Kodesh Kodashim? We have the Aron. Now, this description, notice this is the description, the most descriptive description, the most intimate, detailed description of the Raya from the bottom up. The most intimate object of the Beit HaMikdash was the Aron. And the description that we get of the Aron, interestingly enough, from the bottom up, also contains the same anomalies. Arba Hamotav. It's 4 feet. It's 4 steps. We start Vasu Aron Aseh Shitim Amatayim V'chitzi Arko Am V'chitzi Rachbo V'am V'chitzi Komato V'tzipito Zahav Tahor. You shall make it of pure gold. Mibayit V'chutz Titzapenu V'sitalav Zer Zahav Saviv V'yatzatalo Arba Tabot. Make for it 4 rings. Now these rings, and I didn't go through because I don't have time to show you, but that the psukim that we read actually talk about, if you count them up, there are 4 rings. There are 4 round shapes that appear in the description of the Raya. Okay? V'yatzato arba tabot. It's supposed to have 4 rings of zahav. And a tato arba pamotav that you place, and it's pamim or pamot, ushtei tabaot al tzalo hachad, etc. I'm going to just move to the bottom. The final pasuk in this unit says, "B'taot ha'aron yu habadim lo yisur mehen, lo yisur mimenu." That the batim are to go into those rings and they're to stay there. And we read that these rings are liquid filled, right? That these rings, if I'm going back to Shir now, okay? These rings are to connect with the Melech intimately and not to be removed. What we have here is an incredible, intimate description of the love between the Raya Gadol, Hashem, and Bnei Israel, vis-a-vis the description that we get in the Torah of the Aron Kodesh, and it gives us an incredible insight into the meaning behind the fact that the badim, the staves, are not to be removed. that cleaving together is meant to be eternal, an eternal cleaving together. And this incredible description appears in such veiled terminologies that I think it's we can read it in public because nobody understands it. But what it's telling us, what it's telling us that if you really think about it, the relationship that we're talking about here, the model, the male-female, the husband-wife model that's being used is the most beautiful. And Sof, we're really using that model until we're taking it to the end to explain the level of intimacy that we have with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. And that intimacy between a man and a wife is Kodesh HaKodeshim, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. And that is giving us the ability to understand what it means to have a relationship with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, where there is no period of separation, there is only union. And that perhaps is and I'm skipping over a bunch of stuff. That perhaps is what Shlomo HaMelech, in fact, is describing in Shir HaShirim. This incredible love between Hashem and Bnei Israel, which culminates with the bringing of the Aron to the Beit HaMikdash. Because who brings the Aron to the Beit HaMikdash? Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo HaMelech builds the Beit HaMikdash. He's the one who brings the Aron. And we have a fascinating insight that we get, believe it or not, from the Septuagint. Because the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Tanakh, which, by the way, is not the Targum HaShirim, which is a bit of a different thing, but it does give us an insight into how the Jewish community of Alexandria understood the Kitvei Kodesh, the holy scriptures. And there are many different intrusions into the text that we get from the Septuagint. And we have this fascinating intrusion into the text that we get over here in Sefer Malachim, in the Book of Kings, where we have this description of Shlomo HaMelech bringing the Aron to the Beit HaMikdash, right? And then there's this intrusion which doesn't appear in the Masoretic text, where the Septuagint states, "Then spoke Solomon concerning the house when he had finished building it." Pardon me, it's the red part. It's the red part. The intrusion is the red part. "Behold, is not this written in the book of Song? This is written in the book of Song." This is written in the book of Song. Where is this written in the book of Song? What is the book of Song? And this reading, of course, we don't have the Parshanim here because the Parshanim are not studying Septuagint. But we have the scholars who are trying to figure this out. Like, what book is that? The book of Song. Well, there must be books that we lost. But then the most prevalent of the ideas that get suggested is that the original Hebrew, which they must have been translating from, must have been Sefer, not Shir, but transpose the letters, Yashar, Sefer Yashar. It's a lost book, right? Must be that lost book, Sefer Yashar, that we knew was lost all along. Well, it's in there also, which is a really cute thing, but it's really not what it says. It's in the book of Song. It's in the book of Shir HaShirim. This is what Shir HaShirim is about. Shir HaShirim is about the bringing of the Aron to its final resting place, to the Beit HaMikdash. And what does that have to do with Pesach? What is Pesach? Pesach is the culmination of Yetziat Mitzrayim, which is described in Az Yashir, Mikdash Adonai Kunenu Yadecha. When does that get fulfilled? In the days of Shlomo. This was introduced with the song Az Yashir, and it was concluded with the song Shir HaShirim. Shir HaShirim is the conclusion of Az Yashir. It is the song of the bringing of the Aron to the Kodesh HaKodeshim. It was written by Shlomo HaMelech to celebrate his most incredible achievement. It has been hiding in plain sight. We've had his riddles all along. If we understand what it says, it brings us literally into the Kodesh HaKodeshim, this most beautiful of books. And I hope that this will inspire us to have a renewed relationship with Shir HaShirim. My book is available here now. It's 80 shekels. And I'm sorry that this book is not available, but it is available on Amazon. So, Tazara.
Thank you.